I'll try and improve it later, but welcome to tonight. We don't have an official title or a band name. Not that we, anyway. We don't have an official title, but it's so cool to get together. CreativeHQ, so Emily, who's a legend, will do a wee shout out, which is really cool. She's helping to run these events, and really we're trying to, I guess, like elevate the creative scene, especially around the freelancing industry here in Wellington, just to make it more accessible, more, I guess, put more encouragement out there for people to give it a go. But also when you're encouraging people, there's normally like a lack of education on like, how do you even do this thing? Or how do I jump out? Or other people experiencing the same problems that I am. And it's always great to hear when someone else is struggling with the same thing you are, because you're like, I'm not alone. So hopefully we can achieve that. And yeah, so my name's Alex. I am actually from Nelson, but I've lived in Wellington for about a year and a half, which is cool. I enjoy it. The last 5 days have brought me back to home with the sun. That's a really great thing. Doesn't really come out too much, but I might have to get one of these walls at home to remind me. But yeah, and I moved to Wellington, and I'm one of Connor's unicorns, which is kind of like Charlie's Angels of the freelancing world, and it feels very much like that. But yeah, nice to meet you, and I'm going to be hosting this chat tonight. We're chatting with Ryan, which is really cool.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, which is really awesome. And yeah, we're going to be chatting all things like freelancing, when to get into it, a little bit of the journey of being a freelancer, and then even a bonus of actually if you wanted to jump from being a freelancer into running an agency or running a marketing or a team that's slightly bigger than yourself. So if you are not a freelancer or you're not in Ryan's space or in his lane, you should hopefully be able to apply what he's sort of learned and learning to your own context as well. So why don't you put your hands together for Ryan? That'd be really cool. Awesome. Right. Well, like I said, we're going to be talking about that, and yeah, and then hopefully after this we can stick around and connect and mingle more. And these are going to be once a month. Hey, Emily. Yes. Yes. I just forgot that detail. Pretty important detail. But once a month, it may be here, maybe at other venues. But we just wanted to get together, and the people that I chatted with before tonight were just saying it'd be cool if these were more accessible. So keep your eyes out on Meetup and Facebook and LinkedIn and whatever other social media app gets developed in the next few weeks. And yeah, it's going to be really cool. So, Ryan, nice to meet you. Literally met you yesterday.
Likewise.
So we've been friends for a long, gone through a lot.
Yeah.
And it'd be really cool just to hear a bit about you before we get into questions. So maybe just like share with everyone sort of like where you're from, bit of background, and sort of what are you up to now?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a Hutt boy, so I didn't grow up too far away. Yeah. So yeah, I've just moved back there recently. Actually, it's been really good. I've been working in marketing for probably 6 years, and so I went to Victoria University, did a marketing degree. I came out, and actually that was my first sort of step into freelancing. Is that as soon as I left uni, I realised that everyone had the same qualification as me. I didn't really have any experience in the space. And so I was looking for a job, and so what I initially did is jump on student job search, and I found that there was a lot of small sort of jobs for small businesses like hairdressers and salons and stuff like that were looking for someone to help them like 5 hours a week. And so for the first 3 months of my career, I actually started threading together a few of these different little jobs and trying to build it into something more full-time. But at that stage, I'd got like an agency job. So I worked in an agency for probably 3 or 4 years. I went and worked at a software company in 2017 for just a little over a year. And during that time, I got asked to do a lot of freelancing work. That was before Unicorn Factory popped up, or at least in the stage that it is now. And yeah, just as that grew, I just decided to go out on my own. I had a few freelancing contracts, and over the last probably 18 months, it's built up quite a bit. So now I have an agency called Atlas Digital. We're a team of 3, and we use freelancers as well from Unicorn Factory all the time.
Awesome. How good's that? Be cool to see actually just like a raise of hands. Who is actually a freelancer in the room?
Oh,
awesome.
Wow. Cool.
Great. And everyone else, I'm assuming, well, you could fit into any sort of walk of life, but is everyone else sort of like creative or techie or just loves pizza? Yeah, it's like if you can smell it from the street, I would have come into. It's okay. No, that's really cool. So, I mean, along that journey, like coming out of, do you know a stat of how many people like finished that year with you, like from that?
I don't know, but I did used to think, like, when I'd put in CVs and stuff, I'd think, like, wow, there's so many people sitting in all those lecture theatres, and now they're, like, probably almost all of them are looking for, like, the type of jobs I'm going after. So I don't know, but I guess hundreds.
Yeah, cool. It'd be cool to, like, look at that first part. So that first journey, like, you're looking at student job search, you're looking for these jobs, all these guys are advertising 5 hours, which is classic. And but to actually, like, jump out and not seek straight away, like, a full-time employment, like, what was your thinking? Well, what went through your mind to actually go around and, like, just gather all these small part-time jobs?
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, to be quite frank, I was a student, I needed, or at that stage I was a graduated student, but I needed an income, and on student job search there was, you know, some marketing job that wanted like 5 hours a week, and so I just did that and started enjoying it. I think it was the second one I did. It was actually a Brazilian waxing place, funnily enough. So I guess got to know probably a bit too much about that stuff. But basically, I went there, and then they were like, "Oh, you need to run our Google Ads account." And then I was like, "What's Google Ads?" And so then that got me super interested, though. Like, oh, this whole platform I never knew existed. I didn't hear about it at uni, and started doing that, and then just noticed that a few more of those were on student job search. So I'd straight away just pick up the blower, just sell them the dream on the phone, and you know, you win some, you lose some. But yeah, it was a good 2-3 months of getting the jobs.
I mean, it's probably like the best hashtag for like any freelancer. You win some, and you lose, you know, a lot. You know, like you lose some too. But so I'm sure, that's great. Before we move on into like my next question I've got prepared, like with I just had my own joke just threw me off my thought of training.
It'll come back to you.
So like, oh my gosh, and there's lights outside. I'm slightly ADHD, so just like bear with. No, cool. So the first question we've got here is actually like when to become a freelancer, and I think that freelancer has like a few different definitions, like depending on like who you are and like who you've rubbed shoulders with or what you've given a go. But do you want to sort of break down like a little bit of like what actually is a freelancer and like when to make that jump? Because I think you've got a lot of, obviously you worked in an agency and you made a jump, so do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, what is a freelancer? I guess a freelancer is just anyone with a specialized skill set that people want to exchange money for, right? And it really, you can do all sorts of things. Like even if we just talk about Unicorn Factory, there's so many like categories on there and stuff like that. So it's really quite broad what you can actually sell as your skills. But essentially, you're someone selling a service to someone else, usually a business. In terms of like making the jump, I think what can be really alluring is like going and starting your own business and being like untethered to the 9 to 5 and just, you know, creating something for yourself. And I think that's really awesome. But I think my approach really was to think about how can I, outside of getting these initial, you know, student job search jobs and moving into having a career, it's more like, how can I actually build something up over time that's kind of less risky to me? Because I think that what really happens is that you go from like, you know, a solid income to, you know, an income that goes up and down, and that can be scary, but it can also make life a little bit harder, right? Like everyone has bills to pay and they want to go out and have a few beers on the weekend or whatever. So I think rather than thinking of it as like a binary thing, like you either like, you know, work for yourself or you don't, my advice is just really think about like, what spare time do you have? Like if you're working 40 hours a week, you could, I think, like, you know, you could definitely allocate like 5-10 hours a week to working outside of that for some period of time before you get like super burned out, right? So I think that, and be careful of that as well, because I've definitely done too much freelancing while I'm working as well. So yeah, I think it's really just like, try to build up what you're doing over time, rather than just going like, I'm going to stop doing this and start getting business. Like try to actually get a few contracts first and then move into doing it full time when it's kind of less risky for you. Because I think we're gonna, I know we'll get into this soon as well, but being a freelancer, and you know, I've given that kind of tight description of like you're selling a skill that you have to a business. But alongside that, you know, selling is the key word, right? Like you're actually convincing someone to use you. It's not that you're going into like an organization with a manager that's laying out the scope of work and telling you what to do. They're looking to you as someone like, okay, you have the skills, but you need to tell me how to implement this, like how this should work, and you also need like more ownership over your communication style, even like your invoicing, and how do you even sell in the first place. So I would say like start small while you have a steady income and work on the skills and the process to get you there. So while I was working at Raygun, so like I started getting asked to do freelancing work. I couldn't while I was at agencies because there's a valid conflict of interest where you're kind of like selling their ideas as well that you naturally pick up like day to day. But while I was at Raygun, like doing freelancing work, I went right through like a number of clients. I think like by the end of it, I had like 6 monthly clients that I'd work with, and then I was already subcontracting people to help me with the work because it was just like too much. But what I learned that year was so invaluable to like all of last year when I went out on my own in February. So it's like picking the right clients, like saying yes to the right type of work, like scoping out what you realistically have done before and can repeat versus having to punt at something that you're like fairly sure you know how to do, or at least you know better than the person that you're selling it to, so you're technically the expert. Yeah, does that sort of answer it?
Yeah, it does, and it also like opens up a whole another world of like,
yeah,
what clients should you work with? And I think we've all experienced a lot of like, well, you may have experienced good clients, great clients, and you've also got those clients where you're like, you know, you were excited at the start, but you didn't maybe do enough pre-qualification questions or diving in, and then like, you know, 7 hours later, you're like, what have I done? You know, who have I just met and taken on board?
Yeah.
So that's probably like a whole other conversation on like how to find the right clients.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, I think that's a really valid idea, the idea that, I think for me, I made the wrong decision in that moment. When I jumped out, I left my job, I was newly married, and we were planning a baby, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna leave my job, and I'm gonna do this freelancing thing. And we just made it through, which is cool.
Yeah.
That was a great experience. But I think we always look back and we're like, man, if we did that again, I think we would have kept some sort of like a consistent, this is for anyone who is still working and you're thinking like, I would love to jump out. I think, like you said, it's not binary, it's not like black and white, like you either freelance or you don't. I think that it's something that you can do on the side, and then it may just blow up, you know, one day or 1 week you find the right client, and then you can say, hey, let's give it up. But I think it's smart to hold on to some consistent, trustworthy income while you have the chance, while you have that there, and then there'll be a moment where you can jump.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like everyone that does actually just jump out on their own is like incredibly courageous and needs like huge props, because that is like a crazy risk to take. And I was too scared to do it, right? Like I did it like sort of like part way, but it's really like, and you learn different things, but certainly I think you can, if you think of it in terms of like, how do I offset risk of my income, then like I think then you increase how much you can earn at any time. Because if you think of it in terms of like, how much will you earn in a year, then if you just go and leave your job, then a lot of that time's like dead time that you spend trying to build up business and stuff, where you could just be refining your processes and learning as you're delivering work and getting paid for it.
Awesome. Well, in terms of that, like building skills goes perfectly into the next question. Is so you've become a freelancer, and this is a scenario, and you gave a wee description at the start. Like a freelancer is someone who's got a desired set of skills that businesses want to exchange in exchange for money. But what else do you need? So like, let's say you are a graphic designer, or you're an illustrator, or you're a website developer. Obviously that's your skill, but what else do you need to actually make that like a viable business? Like, can you just have the art and you just go find people who will pay you for that, or are there other skills that you need?
Yeah, sure. And I think it starts at like, what are your goals, right? Because maybe you don't want to start your own business full time. You just love doing little side projects and you just want to get a little bit of money for it. So I guess assuming that you want to be a freelancer or build up some sort of consistent income, then I think that number one, you need to make sure that you are like the very best that you can be at something, or at least have a level of expertise that is like sought after and you can confidently deliver like good work to people. But that's the main thing, the main reason that someone freelances, right? Like, oh, I love doing Google AdWords and SEO and working with clients, so I'm going to offer that service. But the difference is, like, if you're in an agency doing that, for example, like, they've got client service people, they've got people working in sales, like building out the pipeline, project managing, bookkeeping, like invoicing, and so when you become a freelancer, you have to do all of those things. So it's not, I think what's important is like really managing the flow of your work first and foremost. There's kind of two styles of work that you end up doing, and it does kind of depend on what you do. Like if you're a graphic designer, then maybe you do one sort of one-off piece of work and then you have to move on to the other. If you're doing like Google Ads and SEO, then often it's like far longer pieces of work where you might get paid on like a monthly basis. But really consider how your work is sold, and then always be thinking of like where the next work is coming from. So the first thing I'd say is just like focus on building a pipeline. It's easy to get real busy and go, I've got so much work, I don't know what to do. And then the next month you're like, oh, it's dry July. What am I supposed to do? And so for me, like I know with Atlas Digital now, the sales cycle takes about 6 weeks. So by the time I first talk to someone, usually it's 6 weeks between like, getting the first email to setting up a call to sending them a proposal to like making adjustments based on what the scope is, and then kicking off the work in a way that fits in with our projects. And so think about as a freelancer what that is, because what you don't want to do as well is just like, yeah, I'll take that on, yeah, I'll take that on, because then you can't deliver all the work and then you kind of get overdone. So I think sales is like a big one, not in being a salesperson, but how do you manage the process of sales so that you personally can make the same consistent amount of money every month. I think that's a really important skill. The other one I would say is like realizing that you're accountable for the service that you deliver. Like people don't necessarily want to hire a freelancer that they have to direct because they came to you because they're not sure what to do. So it's really realizing like, okay, I've got ownership over this project. They're looking at me as the expert, so I need to, take accountability of that work and be proactive in how you deliver it, and also be proactive in like how you communicate. And I think when you can kind of nail that that engagement with the client and just basically do great client service as a freelancer, like you're going to get way more referrals and you're going to get way more repeat business with them. So even if you just focus on nailing those two things, I think, those are two great skills to develop alongside the skill that you're actually selling.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's being like smart, like not front loading too much, so that you're like so under it, and then you end up, normally when you go like overload yourself, quality of work can drop as well, and customer communication, and even yourself, because like as a freelancer, especially when you're like on your own, maybe you network with others, you've got a bit of a support network, but specifically when you like are on your own and it's just you and it's just the clients, you can like, and you overload yourself, like your mind can go, it can be pretty tiring, and you can end up like overworking, and then when that, not only the quality of your work goes down, but then even like your like commitment to it as well, you can start to lose that sort of passion for it. So when it comes to like not too much, maybe not too technical or too much detail, but what are the like main markers that you do look for in a good client, and what's like one or two things that if you're hearing off the bat, like in the first email, or maybe it's the 4th email, or maybe it's around week 5, like in your process, what's like maybe a couple good things, and then one or two things where you're like, if you hear these words, you need to like dig deeper into what it is, or like a red flag.
Yeah, so I've got like a criteria of 3 things, and I'll admit when I was a freelancer, I was more, first of all, I didn't think about it like this, but second of all, I was more like, I just need this work to kind of like, keep building things up. So I've got 3 things that I go to. So number 1 is like budget. Do they actually have the budget that's in the range that I want to work with clients? Like, are they going to be able to pay me what I want to get paid for my work? Number 2 is, can I confidently deliver value? If it's like a small business, and then I'm like, look, it's going to cost you like X thousand a month or whatever it is that you're charging to deliver the service, can you confidently give them value over that period, or you're going to have a conversation in 6 months where you're like, like we did a good job, but you can only get 10 leads realistically over like every 2-month period or something. So it's like they're not getting value for money. And number 3, to be frank, is just like, are they a dick? And like, luckily, the are they a dick thing happens like straight off the bat. So it's never like week 5. It's like, let's do an email. Okay, like what are your main goals? Let's set up a call. And then just based on that call, if red flags pop up, then quite often I'm just like, I don't want to work with this person. Because if they're going to be hard to work with.
Or like, what makes someone a dick? Like, you know, like it would be good to have some markers. Like,
yeah,
you know,
sure,
like,
okay.
maybe not that
Yeah.
crass, but like,
Yeah.
what's something, you know, you're hearing on the call, they've given you their like sort of 3 goals over the next 12 months or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and then you jump into that first discovery or strategy or triage call or whatever you call the call.
Yeah.
What is it about somebody or the way, what is that where you're like, okay, this person, I either have to really clarify how this is going to work and take control, or you just like, okay, this isn't going to be a good fit. Like, what are some of those markers?
Well, I think one of the main ones is just a general personality, right? Like you meet someone and then like you kind of feel like you click with them and you could have like a good working relationship, and that's always a big one. Another one is like if they have realistic expectations, like if they're like, you know, look, I want to pay $500 a month and I want to triple the size of my business in 6 months. It's like, well, is that realistic based on what you're looking for, and what are their expectations? And then also like, how willing are they to kind of engage with you collaboratively, I think. Because at the end of the day, like while you might be delivering a service, I think at the end of the day, you need to really understand someone's business like in depth. And if, I guess for me, it's just like, do I get the sense that they're going to be easy to work with? And some of those things would, I don't know, it's just really like what are their expectations, I suppose, is the main thing. And like, what have their past experiences been? Like, have they done this work before? Like, what went wrong? That type of thing, what went right? And just kind of getting a feel for it. But I think it's hard to pin down.
I think it's a confidence thing too. Like, I think for me personally, like when I first started out, I was sort of like, I chase any job with a any job with a price tag, because I was like, your boy, you know, needs to be financed. And then you learn like quite quickly that that's not really a great way to operate.
Yeah, sure.
You know, you overload yourself, you're working with clients with unrealistic expectations. But I think that one way that you do learn, you get to know about somebody, a client, and what they're like, is when you sort of, and for me, I feel like I'm only just starting to learn this, but it's like the confidence in those calls as well, like to when you hear those markers to actually have some good pushback, like healthy pushback. And normally if someone doesn't respond well to you saying, hey, I understand where you're at, and I know that you want to like 10x your business because you watched that YouTube video, but you're wanting to sort of put $300 a month towards this, or $500.
Yeah.
And if you're able to just like articulate their situation, you know, validate their situation, but then also say, hey, this might actually be more of a realistic expectation or approach. Like learning to have those moments in conversations, that's when you can feel like, because they're either going to say, oh, I understand. I mean, I don't actually know. That's why I'm coming to you. Yeah. Or they'll say, no, I saw on thingy that it blows up overnight. You know, with this magic formula.
And I think just like on that, I think that's really like the important part, right? Is just like, what are their expectations, but also like how are they going to engage with you in terms of like meeting those expectations as well? Like, are they gonna? I don't know, you know when you just work with someone and then you just kind of know that you're not going to necessarily get on. I think it's better to like identify that early on and then just like make sure that you're going to be the right fit. Because client fit, I think, is overall the best sort of indicator of if you're going to have a successful relationship or not. Yeah.
Now that's cool. Have you ever like just referred a client because you didn't find that fit? Or would it normally just be like a no and sort of maybe encourage them to find someone else? Or do you have like a network as well where you're like, just feel, and that might not be the extreme, but it might be like, let's say you're a freelancer and you meet a client and you just know, because you talked about, which I think is really important, like can you confidently actually deliver the value that you're promising these guys, or maybe not promising, but outlining. If you have that moment and you're strong enough to say, actually, I don't know if I can give you the full value, like, what do you do in that moment? Like,
so I think like when I was working at an agency, I actually worked at a smaller one, and then I moved to one called Uprisers over there. They're a really great team. And what I noticed there is that at the end of the day, you're just selling like people's time. And so if you're working with people that are going to unnecessarily take up a lot of time by like having unrealistic expectations and stuff like that, then that's going to stop you from growing. And I learned that as well, like while I was freelancing, working full time, like some clients are like, hey, we've done this, this, and this, and they're like, oh, that's cool, let's keep doing it, and others are like, I don't know, just a little bit more difficult. And so what I realized is that if I want to grow a business that, one, I enjoy working in and enjoy who I work with, and two, I want to grow it in a way that is scalable and can actually make you money, then you need to get that right client fit, like right from the start. And so, like last year, for example, I would say that I said that we wouldn't work with like double the amount of people that we did work with, like just from like a fit level, where it's one of those markers kind of on the personality fit, the budget or the expectations like wasn't met. And so yeah, I do typically, if I think it's not going to be a good fit, then usually I'm just upfront. I'm like, look, at the end of the day, like I've understood your business objectives, and I just think based on what you're trying to achieve, you could probably do this like cheaper, and you need kind of like slightly different things, and then you'll probably get like a better return on investment, because we're trying to work with companies that, like mainly SaaS companies that have like a global market. So you're like, okay, we can take your traffic to like 100K on SEO or something. So if it's a small business and they can only increase their markets only 1,000 traffic a month, excuse me, then that's not going to be fun for either party, because they're just going to pay. We're going to get there, and they're going to go like, oh, I thought I'd get more than this. And it's like, well, that's all it is. So usually I just be really upfront and just say, hey, look, like I don't think that you're going to get the best value for what we can deliver. Have you checked out Unicorn Factory? Is often what I'll say.
Yeah, like my Facebook feed is just plagued with Connor. It's
Yeah.
just like, hey, you should check this guy. It's just like unicorn everywhere, which is really cool. No, that's cool. I think that obviously, like what you're saying, one of the biggest things to like a freelance business or any business is actually sales, right? And it's like, even I'm like reminded of like, oh yeah, I've got to get that sales things going. But I think that sales is one of the most important skills.
Yeah.
Do you have a plug? Do you have a book? Do you have, not like, I don't know if you've written a book, but is there any resource that these guys can go check out? Like just real quickly, around the sales, do you have someone who has helped you in that?
So I've had some really good advice from like an old general manager who's gone out on his own as well and doing general consulting, Peter DeBoer, just to plug his name. But he taught me something really valuable about actually setting realistic expectations with clients when you're doing sales. So I think letting clients know that you don't have capacity right now, and that like you'd love to work with them, but actually you only have time in 3 weeks' time. Can they wait for that? Is a great way that, one, the client respects you, because like frankly we use freelancers, and one of the common things I notice is that people just go like, yeah, I can do that. It's like, do you have capacity to deliver like this, this, and this over the next 2 weeks? If you don't, it's fine. We'll still use you for other work, but we'll just resource it elsewhere. And like, I don't think I've ever come across a freelancer that's like, honestly, I can't, but I would like to. And I think just being able to do that makes people go like, cool, because now I'm going to go to my client and be like, cool, this is going to be done by the end of the week. And then the freelancer won't be able to do it because you've overcommitted, and then you're just like, hey, sorry that I told you it'd be done by the end of the week, now it's not, and then all the dominoes fall down. So I think that is super important when you're doing sales. In terms of like a book or something, then I can't say that I have anything that comes to mind, but the main way to generate steady sales, because if you're a freelancer, you might only need like 1 or 2 leads a month that you're closing or something like that, depending on if you're doing like continuous or discontinuous work. So have referrer partners. So as a digital marketing agency, who fits in with you? It's like, okay, web development businesses typically don't offer like Google ads and SEO. Some of them do some SEO stuff, but not like proper stuff all the time. But no, like it's just not their core service, right? Like they don't offer that as like a full set strategy. They just do like technical SEO. So like, yeah, web development, web designers, say like PR agencies. Like PR agencies want to do PR. So it's like, how do you find points of leverage that can give you multiple leads versus like you just trying to go out all the time to get them? And I think like Unicorn Factory is actually pretty good off that. Like I've still got a profile, and we get like quite a few people get in touch with us most months, but it's really just like create leverage points that can consistently deliver you work rather than just word of mouth, because word of mouth you can't control. Yeah.
Well, I guess like referral networks is kind of like a controlled word of mouth, but you're going out and set it up, and you're like, like you said, you're like looking at your client, and I don't even see what I do. I help real estate agents with Facebook ads, so I help real estate agents take their prospecting online. There we go, that's what I do. But for me, what I've done in that sense is I've gone, okay, real estate agents, who helps them? So like my like my client, and I'm going, who else helps a real estate agent, build their business, grow, or has contact points? And then I've just gone and connected with all of them. So home staging companies and like drone photographies and business coaches and these other ones. Anyone who's serving a real estate agent, I want to sort of like connect with, because then we can all help each other out. So I think that's a really smart way of building a referral network. We've got one more just to talk about your jump into becoming an agency. Probably more just like, maybe not the, maybe just like why you did it, and a little bit about what that's going to mean for you instead of just staying solo. So give us a little bit of the, why would you not stay solo? Why would you build a team? What's sort of going on there?
Yeah, well, I was just doing freelancing because I wanted to like buy a house and stuff, right? Like I'm just like everyone, just trying to earn like a little bit of extra money to achieve like a goal. And so I suppose like it was towards the end of 2018 that I was kind of like, well, I actually have quite a lot of freelancing work that I'm doing, and I'm earning like an alright amount of money off it. Maybe I should just do this full time, and then I'd probably make more, and it'd be more fun because I get to like work from wherever I want and that type of thing. So I think that initial thing just came because I just had freelancing gigs on the side, and it was going well, so I just decided to commit to it. I never thought that I'd end up I was subcontracting people and stuff like that, but I had no intention of getting like full-time employees or actually building like a full team as an agency. But I suppose the same thing just happened last year, where then I filled up my time and then filled up someone else's time. So I was like, well, maybe you should just come work for me full time. And then now we've got the team of 3, and we use contractors as well to fill like capacity constraints as we need. So really, it's just been more me reacting to increased demand, I guess, for services. It's kind of just gone down the path.
I think that's a really great thing in like a freelancing business or a journey or creative or whatever industry you are in, is actually it is being in response to like what's happening organically. I think that especially if you're like entrepreneurial or like your mind just buzzes, or your ADHD or whatever it is, you can tend to like over structure like the growth of your journey, or sort of presume a little bit too far. I think it's like good to have goals. Obviously, it's good to have goals, good to have a vision and like missions for what you want to do. But I think that you've got to like make sure that you're not over like structuring that journey, because I think it can sort of like put a damper on things, or it can sort of like I think just like hinder the actual like organic growth. So what you did is you were just like freelancing because you had one goal, and then it sort of changed, and then you just sort of like along the way responded and adapted as things came, which I think is like probably the best skill for a freelancer to know, or anyone in business, is to be adaptable, respond at the right times. And I just think like have strong goals, but also don't like over pressure like your now situation with like where you want to be, because I think that can like hold you up a bit.
And just love what you're doing. Like, I was freelancing and stuff because I like wanted to reach some financial goals, but like I really love doing Google AdWords and SEO and like digital marketing in general, and I really, really love having like client relationships. I love working with other people and actually just going like, you want to get to here, like cool, let's do it together, here's what I think you should do, and making it happen. So I think it's just like focus, there are those other skills to develop, but really focus on like what it is that got you into it in the first place, and then the growth will come naturally. Don't necessarily put pressure on yourself like all the time to grow. And I say that knowing that like I do that all the time as well, and it's hard not to, but just kind of try to like enjoy the ride, as cliche as it sounds, I think, because it's easy to go like, you always want more, but then you kind of don't always see how far you've come.
I think that's really important. Like a lot of freelancers, a lot of us in the room, a lot of people are good at their craft, but another side to freelancing is that you do get the freedom to sort of make a few of your own decisions and control a bit of that journey, and you sort of like wreck yourself and take you back to square one when you do stop enjoying it, because then it does just feel like, I don't know, whatever the previous job was or whatever, you can feel really boxed when you do end up doing it, when you lose like the fun for what you're doing. I think freelancing should be fun. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
No worries.
I think we're really cool to do a bit of Q&A if anyone has any questions. be cool to open up the field for that. So does anyone have any questions about Ryan or freelancing or anything? Nicola, go.
Just in terms of like the kind of 6 weeks sales process, I have this mindset that when like people come to me, they kind of want this thing solved like now or like started quite soon, and that if I like try and take my time and really like set it up for them, that they're gonna get impatient, or say that I'm busy for the next 3 weeks, that they're gonna get impatient and go to someone else.
Yeah.
So how do you like slow that down but still not deter them?
Well, I think the first thing is making sure that what you offer is unique and something that they can only get with you. So, you know, say, and I'm just talking Google Ads all the time because like, we do a lot of that stuff, but it's like, what else do you add to that? What strategy do you bring? What process and that type of thing? So the first thing is making it really clear what your like USP or unique selling proposition is and what they'll get from working with you. The second thing is building trust and just letting them know, like, hey, I want to be totally upfront with you. Like, you know, because there's a demand for what I'm doing, and I've had lots of people getting in touch, I have to set realistic expectations. This is basically what I always say to clients. It's like, I'd really love to work with you. It sounds like there's some good opportunity, and if we can start now, like I do, but if we can't, then I just say to them like, look, we've got capacity in August to start with you. Usually we only onboard 1 or 2 new clients a month, which is like a legitimate thing we do to just deliver consistent service. And our view is just like, we can't onboard new clients at the expense of our current clients, because otherwise, like, you know, they're missing out, and they're the ones that we've been working with for a while, and you're going to become one of those as well. So, you know, like, I think people respect you being upfront like that. If they are impatient and they do really want to get started, and you really want the piece of work because it's going to help you get new pieces of work and stuff, you need to then consider like, okay, can I rescope some expectations with other clients? What's their leniency and their timeframes for things to get done? And number 2, just, you know, on odd occasions, just going, okay, can I put in an extra like 10 hours, just smash something out through the weekend and free up some capacity? Or number 3, which I do, and that's why we kind of have these contractors that we use as well, is just go, cool, we'll pull in this person to take over like that piece of work, and then we'll get started on this, or scope the work of like, you know, we'll start with this piece of work because that's where we have capacity, and lead into that. So yeah, there's a few things.
Awesome.
Just on that, if people have to wait, then there's, you know, just understanding that you've actually got work already, so you must be good at what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas if you go straight in, then you have got your work, and why is that?
Yeah, totally. And I think something like when I'm looking for people to work with, it is genuinely looking for people to work with, like partners, not a supply and demand type service where like you're at the whim of a company paying you. And so I think like when you actually don't make it, like I'm not saying make it hard to work with you, but when you have parameters around like how you work, then people go like, okay, that's how I should work, rather than setting an expectation right from the start that like, yep, you're cool, I'll drop everything and be right on like doing what you're doing. So yeah.
I think, and that's like the way you start a relationship too can be the way that it continues as well. So if you sort of start like answering within seconds, like, you know, it pops up in Gmail or whatever you use, and it's like, and then you reply straight away, it can be this, you know, you're starting that, you know, with pretty high standards, or, you know, so like the way that you, I think we were talking about that before as well, like the way that you start a client relationship is so important, right? Because the way you start is the way that they will expect it ongoing. Which is really cool. With any other questions or thoughts? Yeah.
So I'm a creative freelancer, so the work that I do is not always like a necessity. It's sort of something that if they have a bit of budget, then they'll go for it. But is there something that employers like look for when they receive, like, say that I'm emailing a bunch of businesses to see if any of them would like to hire my services? Is there a thing that employers look for when it comes to reading those kind of emails that would make them want to like have an interview with me or something?
So what sort of creative services are you doing?
I'm a freelance videographer.
Cool. Okay. So you're just like finding these on LinkedIn and then contacting them, or how?
It's sort of LinkedIn. Sometimes I contact small businesses that I might have common interests with, or that kind of thing.
Yeah. I suppose the first thing is making the distinction between like you've got outbound sales, that which you're doing, you're going out and finding new prospects, and then inbound where people are coming to you. And so the response rate of those is always going to be quite different, because outbound, it's like Facebook versus Google ads, right? Like you're scrolling down Facebook looking at cat videos or whatever, then an ad pops up, and then it's like, is that person ready to stop what they're doing and then do what you wanted, or are they just going to keep looking at cat videos? Whereas like Google ads, people are like, I want like a lawn specialist, and then you've got an ad for a lawn specialist, like exactly what I was looking for. So there's always going to be a different sort of conversion rate. So leading into that, I think the first thing to keep in mind is like, you just try to get in touch with a larger volume of people, because not all of them are going to be ready. Number two is nurture that list. So there's like free stuff like Streak on Gmail, it's like an extension. You can just upload like heaps of contacts and then contact them and put reminders. And I do this as well. So like, got a nurture list of people that we could work with in future that weren't ready, and then just check in every 3-4 weeks and go, hey, just checking in, you know, like, did you want any of that work? In terms of how do you get them to respond to your emails, I think when I've done meaningful outreach to someone or a business that can be like a good referrer network, it's really taking the time to think about like, what are they getting from this? Not like, oh, hey, I'm Ryan, you know, we're a bit light on work, it'd be great to get some Google ads or something like that. It's like, you know, a good example is like, there's someone that I'm meeting soon, and I got in touch with him and said like, hey, you might not remember me, but we met 2 years ago, you talked about this thing, and I thought like it would be really good to catch up. In particular, I'm looking to do this. Do you have time? Tell me a time that works for you and I'll make it work for me. Like just make yourself like suit them. And I think as well, just have something interesting to tell them. Like, you know, I've been working with a lot of agencies lately doing videography, and there's a few things that we've been finding that have been really effective. I'd love to sit down, take 30 minutes of your time and just tell you the 3 or 4 like strategies that we've been using to win more video work, and then like keep it coming, or something like that.
I think, sorry, just from my experience, another way you could go about it is just not actually trying to take something from them, but just being like, hey, look, there's a million cafes out there, do you want to just choose one, and we can just catch up and just, you know, just say hi and hey, it's my shout for the coffee kind of thing. So like, not going to approach it as a, like, trying to get something from them all the time. And so it's just becomes more of a mutual thing, and that way people are more willing to sort of meet people.
Yeah, I think that's really good. Like I had someone message me on LinkedIn like 3 weeks ago, and then we set up a meeting, and then like halfway through the meeting, it was like a Zoom meeting. I was like, oh, in my mind I was like, oh, this is a sales meeting. But it was so good because it totally didn't feel like, I thought I was getting to know him, and then he's like auditing my LinkedIn page, and then he's like showing me his service, and then like halfway through the proposal, like his presentation, I'm like, oh, this guy's selling to me. But it was actually really epic. And I was like, I totally like am gonna like message you back, Steve, because you're a great guy. But what was good about it is it felt so natural, and then when he was presenting, and like even, I don't even know why I didn't see what was going on, but he was just such a nice guy. But then yeah, halfway through his like, oh, and then this is the service that we do, I'm like, oh, yeah. But I think what it was really personal. He wanted to get to know me, and it wasn't very pushy. Like he was really just like, hey, this is, he used your exact words, like, this is what we're doing at the moment, and it's getting some good results, and I would love to walk you through it. And I was like, yeah, cool. I thought I was making a new friend, but yeah, that's really, I think that's really good. I think that with sales, it's just not being aggressive and not being too desperate. Yeah. And I think that comes across. Like when you're really urgent to get the job, the person's like, yeah, you really are urgent to get this job, you know. But when it is personal and you're sort of not aloof, I don't think it's about being like, I don't need your like acting like I don't need your work, and it's like, and then the guy's like, you messaged me, you know. But it's being natural. It's just being you. And what's that quote? You know, people buy from people, and so they're not going to buy from a machine or a mega brand. But if it's a mega brand with a nice face on it, you know, and a great personality, then people will connect to that. So yeah, are there maybe a few more questions? Just at the back.
How do you make the jump to higher value clients? So let's say you're working with small businesses and you want to make that jump to medium-sized businesses.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I guess there's two ways that immediately come to mind. One is like you just have to grind it out, and I just want to say as well, like, you know, like clients that don't pay as much, like they're great to work with as well, but obviously if you want to move and work with like higher value clients with bigger teams and bigger budgets, then sometimes you just got to start small and just do a good job and then build your network. Like come to events like this, meet people, but most importantly just manage your reputation. Like do a good job, deliver the work, just be really good to work with, and over time that word of mouth builds up. The other one is like know people. So like, and again, like that feeds into the whole networking thing, right? But if you have like key contacts as well with some influence in the space that you're working with, then, and you have good relationships with them, then often, especially in Wellington, like I've found people just do you favors all the time. And so it's really just like identify the people that you want to be working with, and then think about how you can like kind of get into that sort of circle. But yeah, I think the main thing though is that like if you get a good client, just smash it out of the park, because sometimes getting a ticket, like we've worked with Sharesies, so started working with Sharesies last year, and like they've been great to work with, and we've done some really exciting stuff with them. But just like once you do get a client with like a really good name recognition, make sure that you do a good job, because it will open so many doors for you. So yeah, but it takes a while. You know, I started working with all sorts of different companies, and yeah.
Yeah, what I wondered, since you kind of went from freelancer, because I'm at pretty high capacity and kind of thinking about, you know, starting to outsource more, what I wonder is how is your work enjoyment kind of, has it changed? Is it the same? How has that journey been from being a freelancer doing everything to, yeah, basically running a team and managing more?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess the short answer is that I've learned I'm really passionate about business. Like I really love it, and I think that's a lot of the stuff that I liked around Google Ads and stuff kind of fits into that anyway, like getting that good return on investment, thinking about what's the strategy and what's the market and what you're trying to do. So I think for me, I've been lucky because I've sort of gravitated towards doing that more, to the point I'm like, oh, this is so exciting. We get to like develop service lines and build out strategies and do sales and look after clients and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the journey for me has been good, but you do kind of move away to some extent of doing the day-to-day. I think just to veer off a bit, something to really take notice of is like when you go from you to someone else. So I would this is probably the biggest bridge to overcome, and it takes a while, but it's like people come to a meeting and they buy you, right? When you're a freelancer, yeah, it's like buying like how you are, what you're offering. And so then when you go like, oh, there's two of us now, they're like, oh, but I was buying off Ryan, I want Ryan. And it's like, oh, but we're like a service. And obviously this isn't a conversation that happens, it's just like a subtle thing where they're buying like off a face, not off a business, and making that transition to like, we're a business offering like an integrated service with multiple skills involved versus like, we're just a super specialist, Ryan McMillan's consulting just for you. So I think it's how you communicate that to clients is important, and especially like the word outsourcing and that type of thing is just, yeah. I think it's important how you communicate to clients how other people are coming into your business as well, because what people don't want to feel like is like you're clipping the ticket on a piece of work. It's like how you collectively adding more value for them. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wondered then, in that regard, how different the people are that are coming in through Unicorn Factory that see your profile and get in touch that way, and clients that come through other parts of referrals and actually know that it operates as a group or as an agency.
Yeah, exactly, and like that's certainly a big thing now. And like, just to be totally upfront, like me and Connor have been friends for like quite a few years, and so I think I was one of the first sort of profiles on Unicorn Factory, and I'm still on there, but a lot, like, because we're a business, most of the stuff that comes through we just like refer on, or don't really, it's not that good fit, right? Because it's like you come on looking for someone and then there's someone else. So yeah, I guess it's kind of like you just end up selling from different places and stuff like that. Yeah.
And like becoming Atlas Digital, like what was the idea behind, like did you ever think you could sort of just keep it Ryan, but then just actually have a business in the background? Like was branding it a way to, like what was the brand, like that branding decision to like step away from, because in theory you could technically be still like a solo person but with a business in the background in a way, but is the brand, like is that a necessity when you build a team, or was it more of an idea of like building a new identity like for the company? Or?
Yeah, sure. I think I did both, because like while I was freelancing, then I would use contractors as well, and I'd be upfront about that with my clients also. It is excuse me, but yeah, I guess they were still buying off me, and then we were just delivering like more work, and that's fine. But just to come back to your question, what you'll find is that to sell to a certain level of business, then they want a certain level of service and like look, and that's certainly not why I decided to start an agency. I decided to start it because I just enjoying doing it. I want to grow something and see where I can sort of take it. But yeah, they're two quite different things, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that like would there be like, let's say you are a freelancer, but there's like that like a Shoozies of the like comes to you, and you sort of get that vibe like they want like a business. Like, do you just go and buy a domain and create a brand, or do you just say, you know, like is that a real thing? Like sort of larger businesses actually would rather sort of work with another business, even if it is like the same setup as if you were just called Ryan. Yeah,
I think I'm not speaking for Shoozies, but because I think they're probably different. But like I definitely think I know there's a lot of businesses that like would want to work with an agency versus like a single consultant. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, like whatever's happening, like if they want an agency and you're not an agency, then I'd just be upfront about what you can offer them. It doesn't mean you can't reach and be like, okay, I've contracted people before, we could scale that up. Like you can have a bit of a plan and like take a punt on yourself, but the main thing is just be upfront about like what you're actually doing, what you can deliver, and set realistic expectations. Then no one's disappointed. So I guess the process of going from me to a business, I don't know, it feels like a blur, but basically it was just like, okay, we're getting more work, and then it was kind of like, okay, push back on the stuff and don't get too much, because then you can...
Yeah, well, that's the problem now. Like, I've basically shut the door to anything new because I'm just too busy servicing my current clients. But there is work that I would really like to get involved in, but I know that the only way to take it on is to, start outsourcing a lot of the current clients to other people.
I guess it's also like redefining your role. So when I first worked with clients, and I'd offer them Google Ads, but then as that changed, then it started being like people are executing a lot of your Google Ads and SEO work, but I'm overseeing the strategy, I'm laying out the plan. So I sort of moved my role into like, where do I add value, and then where can you get subcontractors? So then I still ended up working across everything, but I wasn't necessarily like looking at one keyword versus another and going like, what should we do here? I was going like, okay, these are your key markets, this is the most profitable, this is the biggest opportunity, how do we sort of attack this? So I guess one solution maybe is that you could like redefine how you're working with those businesses, work out what your like real core set of skills that you enjoy doing are, and then offer that to them and outsource or subcontract the rest with a team.
Did you ever consider like a collective over a, you being in charge of everyone kind of thing? And like, because with a collective, I guess like everyone's kind of in charge-ish, and everyone's got kind of shared responsibilities and stuff. But obviously at the same time, then there's just like too many people, so too many chefs, I guess.
So just to make sure we're on the same page, so a collective would be like if we offered Google Ads but had another person that did Facebook, for example, and then we're just...
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, if you're a graphic designer or something, if you have slightly different styles and you kind of both, you offer both styles kind of, I guess, on a website.
Yeah, I did actually consider doing that with someone that was like doing some digital marketing stuff. I guess it didn't pan out. We never really started it. We just sort of discussed it. But I think for me, it's just so important to work with the right clients in order to, whatever, like, get where I want to get to, and also just enjoy the work while I'm doing it. you've got to navigate quite a few other things. So like you might be able to deliver the service for that client, but at the same time, then you might have to like work in a way that you don't necessarily want to work, and the other person does. So, and for me in those situations, I'm just like, I don't do that, I do this. But here's a great person you can talk to, and just leave that with them. But yeah, it would work. It's a cool idea.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, that's probably us for time. But thank you so much, Ryan. It's been awesome, like hearing from you and getting advice. And it's normally just cool hearing someone else's story because you can sort of like relate to it and sort of like aspire to be similar as well. So thank you everyone for coming. It's been really, really cool first event to run. So we're going to be doing these monthly and mixing it up with different speakers and different topics. And really it's just going to be a real great opportunity to network as well. And if you are in the Unicorn Factory, it's cool to like see people in person as opposed to like on a big gallery. And we can get to know each other and pass work on and share advice and business tips and all those good things. So please come again at the next ones that we do advertise, but feel free to stick around. There may be a soda left or someone to chat to, so stay around and hang, and awesome. All right.
Thanks.